The city of Prague in the 19th century was a place of bustling progress and historical reverence. Cobblestone streets wove through Gothic architecture, where the echoes of the past whispered through every alleyway. Amidst this vibrant backdrop, Jakub Novak, a young and ambitious railway engineer, found himself at the heart of the city's modernization efforts. His mission was to expand the railway system, a project that promised to propel Prague into a new era of connectivity and industrial prowess. Jakub's days were filled with calculations, blueprints, and the clamor of construction. His evenings, however, were his own. On one such evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast long shadows across the city, Jakub decided to explore a section of the project site that had been largely ignored. Armed with a lantern and a map, he ventured into the more secluded parts of the railway line. As he walked along the old tracks, the sound of his boots crunching against the gravel seemed to grow louder in the silence of the encroaching night. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and aged iron. Jakub's lantern cast a warm, flickering light, illuminating the path ahead and revealing a forgotten spur of the railway. Intrigued, he followed the hidden track, curiosity piqued by its apparent abandonment. The track led him to an overgrown section of the railway, hidden away from the main construction site. Vines and foliage had begun reclaiming the area, weaving through the rusted rails and obscuring the path. Jakub pushed through the underbrush, determined to uncover the reason for its neglect. As he cleared the foliage, Jakub's lantern illuminated an old, dilapidated train car, its metal frame corroded by time. He stepped closer, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the relic. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the air, extinguishing his lantern. Darkness enveloped him, and an uneasy silence settled in. Jakub fumbled for matches, but before he could strike one, a soft, mournful voice broke the silence. "Beware, the tragedy of the tracks." Startled, Jakub spun around, his heart pounding in his chest. In the faint moonlight, he saw the translucent figure of a young woman standing by the train car. Her eyes were filled with sorrow, and her presence seemed to chill the very air around her. "Who are you?" Jakub managed to ask, his voice trembling. "I am a memory," she replied, her voice echoing with an ethereal quality. A reminder of a tragedy that must not be forgotten. Jakub's mind raced, trying to make sense of the apparition before him. "What tragedy?" he asked, taking a cautious step forward. The specter's gaze seemed to pierce through him as she spoke. "Years ago, a terrible accident occurred on these tracks. Many lives were lost, and the truth was buried with them. The past must be remembered to prevent the same fate." As quickly as she had appeared, the specter began to fade, her form dissolving into the night. "Wait!" Jakub called out, but it was too late. She was gone, leaving only the cold night air and the lingering sense of dread. Jakub stood in stunned silence, his mind reeling from the encounter. He relit his lantern, its glow now seeming inadequate against the darkness that surrounded him. He knew he couldn't ignore the warning he had received. Determined to uncover the truth, Jakub resolved to investigate the forgotten tragedy and ensure that history did not repeat itself. As he made his way back to the main construction site, Jakub couldn't shake the feeling that he was now part of something much larger and more mysterious than a mere railway expansion. The specter's warning echoed in his mind, urging him to delve deeper into the past and uncover the secrets that had been buried along with the victims of the tragic accident. Jakub's journey had begun, and he was determined to follow it through, no matter where it led or what dangers it might reveal. The following day, Jakub's thoughts were consumed by the ghostly encounter from the previous night. The specter's warning echoed in his mind, compelling him to investigate further despite his rational disbelief. After a restless night, he arrived at the construction site with a newfound determination. Jakub decided to begin his research at the city archives, hoping to find any records of the tragic accident mentioned by the specter. The archives, housed in a grand, imposing building, were a treasure trove of Prague's history. Dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight streaming through tall, arched windows as Jakub made his way to the section dedicated to the railway's history. He spent hours poring over old newspapers, construction logs, and accident reports. His persistence paid off when he stumbled upon an old article detailing a railway accident that had occurred decades earlier. The article described a catastrophic derailment on a section of track that matched the location of Jakub's discovery. Many passengers had been killed, and the cause of the accident was officially attributed to a mechanical failure. However, the article hinted at rumors of negligence and a possible cover-up by the railway company. Eyewitness accounts suggested that the train had been traveling at an unsafe speed and that safety protocols had been ignored. Jakub's heart raced as he realized he might be on the brink of uncovering a long-buried scandal. As he continued to investigate, Jakub found more references to the accident. One report mentioned a young woman named Anna, a railway worker who had died in the crash. The description matched the specter he had seen. Determined to learn more, Jakub decided to visit the site once more, this time during the day. Returning to the overgrown tracks, Jakub couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The daylight did little to dispel the eerie atmosphere that clung to the area. He approached the old train car with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. As he examined the rusted metal and decaying wood, he felt a sudden chill in the air. "Anna," he called out, his voice steady despite the fear creeping up his spine. "I'm here to learn the truth about what happened to you and the others." For a moment, there was only silence. Then, as if in response, a gust of wind rustled the leaves around him, and the specter of Anna appeared once more. Her expression was one of sorrow and urgency. "Thank you for coming back," she said softly. "The truth must be known. The lives lost in the accident were not mere victims of fate. They were sacrificed by the greed and negligence of those in power." Jakub listened intently as Anna recounted the events leading up to the disaster. She spoke of how the railway company had ignored safety warnings to maximize profits, pushing the train to dangerous speeds. She described the moments before the crash, the panic, and the helplessness of those aboard. "The company buried the truth to protect themselves," Anna continued. "But their actions must be brought to light. You have the power to prevent another tragedy." Jakub felt a surge of determination. He promised Anna that he would do everything in his power to uncover the truth and ensure that the same mistakes were not repeated. The specter nodded, her form shimmering as if in approval. As she faded once more into the ether, Jakub was left with a renewed sense of purpose. The task ahead was daunting, but he knew he could not turn back now. The lives lost in the past depended on him to reveal their story, and the safety of future passengers rested on his shoulders. With a heavy heart but a resolute spirit, Jakub returned to the city, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. His journey to uncover the truth was just beginning, and he was determined to see it through to the end. The city archives had provided Jakub with the initial pieces of a complex and disturbing puzzle. His resolve was now strengthened, but he knew he needed more than historical records to expose the truth. Jakub needed allies and first-hand accounts to build a compelling case. Returning to the construction site, Jakub sought out Marek, an old railway worker who had been with the company for decades. Marek was known for his extensive knowledge of the railway's history and its hidden stories. Jakub found him near the tracks, inspecting the latest progress. "Marek, can I have a word?" Jakub asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Marek looked up, his weathered face showing a mix of curiosity and caution. "Of course, Jakub. What's on your mind?" Jakub hesitated for a moment before deciding to be straightforward. "I've been looking into the old accident on these tracks, the one that happened decades ago. I believe there's more to it than what the official reports say." Marek's eyes narrowed, and he glanced around to ensure they were not overheard. "That's a dangerous path you're treading, lad. Many have tried to dig up the past and found nothing but trouble." "Please, Marek. I need to know the truth," Jakub insisted. "People died, and their deaths were covered up. I've seen something that makes me believe there's more at stake here." Marek studied Jakub for a long moment before sighing deeply. "All right, I'll tell you what I know, but you must promise me you'll be careful." Jakub nodded, relief washing over him. Marek led him to a quieter part of the site, where they could speak without interruption. Marek recounted the events leading up to the accident, confirming much of what Jakub had already discovered. He spoke of the company's negligence, the ignored safety warnings, and the frantic efforts to cover up their mistakes. "There were whispers," Marek said in a hushed tone, that some of the higher-ups ordered the speed increase to test the limits of the new engine. When it failed, they buried the evidence, paid off families, and silenced witnesses. Jakub felt a chill run down his spine. The pieces were falling into place, but he needed more concrete evidence. "Do you know anyone who might have more information? Someone who was there?" Marek nodded. "There's an old engineer named Pavel who retired years ago. He was on duty the night of the accident and saw things that the company would prefer remain forgotten. He lives on the outskirts of the city now, a recluse, but he might be willing to talk." Thanking Marek, Jakub made his way to Pavel's home. The journey took him to a small, weathered cottage on the edge of a dense forest. Jakub knocked on the door, unsure of the reception he would receive. An elderly man with a stern expression opened the door. "What do you want?" he asked brusquely. "Mr. Pavel, my name is Jakub Novak. I'm a railway engineer, and I'm looking into the accident that happened on the old tracks years ago. Marek said you might have information that could help me." Pavel's eyes softened slightly at the mention of Marek, but he still looked wary. "Why are you digging up old ghosts, boy?" "Because the truth needs to be known," Jakub replied earnestly. "And because I've encountered someone who won't rest until it is." Pavel studied Jakub for a moment before stepping aside and motioning for him to enter. The interior of the cottage was cluttered but cozy, filled with relics of Pavel's past life on the railway. "I was there that night," Pavel began, settling into an old armchair. "I saw the train speed past, faster than it should have. I knew something was wrong. When I reached the wreckage, it was chaos. The company men were already there, ordering us to keep quiet, to destroy any evidence that could implicate them." He paused, his eyes distant as he relived the memories. "I wanted to speak out, but they threatened my family. They said accidents happen, and that it would be best for everyone if we moved on. But I never forgot." Jakub listened intently, every detail adding to the picture he was building. "Do you have any documents or anything that could prove what you're saying?" Pavel nodded slowly. "I kept a journal. I wrote everything down, even though I knew it was dangerous. I'll give it to you, but promise me you'll use it wisely." "I promise," Jakub said, his voice filled with gratitude and determination. Pavel retrieved an old, leather-bound journal and handed it to Jakub. "Be careful, lad. There are still those who would do anything to keep this buried." As Jakub left Pavel's cottage, the weight of the journal in his hand felt like a heavy burden, but also a powerful tool. He had the truth at his fingertips, and he was more determined than ever to reveal it. Armed with Pavel's journal, Jakub returned to the construction site, his mind racing with the implications of what he had uncovered. The journal contained detailed accounts of the negligence and cover-up that had led to the tragic accident. It was the proof he needed to expose the truth and prevent history from repeating itself. However, as Jakub delved deeper into his investigation, strange accidents began to plague the construction site. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation, tools went missing, and workers reported eerie occurrences that left them unnerved. Jakub couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was trying to sabotage their efforts. One evening, as the sun set over the city and the shadows lengthened, Jakub gathered a group of workers to discuss the strange events. The air was thick with tension as they shared their experiences, each story adding to the growing sense of unease. "It's like the machines have a mind of their own," one worker said, his voice trembling. "Yesterday, the crane malfunctioned and nearly crushed me. It was working fine just moments before." Another worker nodded. "I've seen shadows moving where there shouldn't be any. It's like we're being watched." Jakub listened carefully, his mind working to piece together the incidents. "We need to stay vigilant," he said, trying to reassure his team. "Whatever is happening, we can't let it derail our work. If anyone sees anything unusual, report it immediately." As the workers dispersed, Jakub couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. The accidents were becoming too frequent and too targeted to be mere coincidence. He decided to take a closer look at the old railway line where the specter had first appeared. Returning to the site, Jakub felt a chill in the air that seemed to penetrate to his very bones. The moonlight cast eerie shadows across the tracks, and the silence was almost deafening. As he walked along the rusted rails, his lantern flickering, Jakub's thoughts turned to the specter's warnings. Suddenly, A loud clang echoed through the night, startling Jakub. He turned quickly, lantern held high, to see a figure standing a few yards away. His heart raced as he realized it was Anna, the spectral figure who had warned him before. "Anna," Jakub called out, his voice steady despite the fear creeping up his spine. "What is happening here? Why are these accidents occurring?" Anna's form shimmered in the lantern light, her expression one of sorrow and urgency. "The past is restless," she said softly. "The truth must be revealed, or the same fate will befall those who work here now. The spirits of the lost are not at peace." Jakub felt a surge of determination. "I have Pavel's journal," he said. "It contains the evidence we need to expose the truth. But the accidents, are they caused by the spirits?" Anna nodded slowly. "The spirits seek justice. They do not wish harm, but their presence disrupts the living. You must act quickly, Jakub, before more lives are lost." With that, Anna's form began to fade, leaving Jakub alone in the darkness once more. He knew what he had to do. The evidence in Pavel's journal was crucial, but he also needed to address the spiritual unrest that haunted the tracks. Jakub returned to the construction site with a renewed sense of urgency. He gathered his team and explained the situation, emphasizing the importance of staying safe and vigilant. He also made a bold decision: to halt construction temporarily until they could ensure the safety of everyone involved. As the workers secured the site, Jakub began devising a plan to reveal the truth and lay the spirits to rest. The task ahead was daunting, but he knew that he couldn't turn back now. The lives of the past and the future depended on his actions. Jakub knew that uncovering the truth about the past accident would not be enough. He had to ensure it was heard by those who could make a difference. With Pavel's journal in hand, he decided to approach the local newspaper, hoping they would help him expose the railway company's negligence. The newspaper office, a bustling hub of activity, was located in the heart of Prague. Jakub entered, the weight of his mission pressing down on him. He requested to speak with the editor, a stern but fair man named Mr. Novak. "What brings you here, Mr. Novak?" the editor asked, his sharp eyes studying Jakub closely. "I have information about a railway accident that was covered up years ago," Jakub began, laying Pavel's journal on the desk. "This journal contains details of the negligence and corruption that led to the disaster. Lives were lost, and the truth was buried." Mr. Novak's expression shifted from skepticism to intrigue as he flipped through the journal's pages. "These are serious accusations," he said. "If this is true, it could bring down powerful people. Are you prepared for the consequences?" Jakub nodded firmly. "I am. The truth must be known, and the spirits of those who died cannot rest until it is." The editor considered this for a moment before nodding. "Very well. We'll investigate and publish the story. But you must be cautious. The people you're going up against won't hesitate to protect their interests." Feeling a sense of relief and determination, Jakub left the newspaper office, hopeful that the truth would soon come to light. However, his sense of accomplishment was short-lived. That evening, as he returned to his modest apartment, he found the door ajar. Inside, the place was a mess. Papers were scattered, and furniture overturned. His heart sank as he realized that someone had been searching for Pavel's journal. Jakub quickly checked his hiding spot and was relieved to find the journal still safe. But it was clear that the railway company, or those loyal to it, had gotten wind of his actions. A sudden noise from the hallway snapped Jakub back to the present. He grabbed a heavy candlestick for protection and moved cautiously towards the sound. To his shock, Marek stepped out of the shadows, looking conflicted. "Marek, what are you doing here?" Jakub demanded. Marek sighed, his shoulders sagging with the weight of his betrayal. "I'm sorry, Jakub. They threatened my family. I didn't know what else to do." Jakub's anger flared, but he kept his voice calm. "You led them here? You betrayed me. They're desperate to keep the truth buried," Marek said, his voice trembling. "But I didn't tell them everything. I couldn't." Jakub took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. "You can make this right, Marek. Help me protect the journal and expose the truth. Together, we can ensure those responsible are held accountable." Marek nodded slowly, the guilt evident in his eyes. "I'll help you, Jakub. I owe you that much." With Marek's assistance, Jakub set up a plan to safeguard the journal and ensure the story reached the public. They moved the journal to a secure location and communicated with Mr. Novak to expedite the publication of the story. As the days passed, the tension mounted. Strange accidents continued at the construction site, and Jakub knew time was running out. The Spectre's warnings grew more urgent, her appearances more frequent. One evening, as Jakub and Marek reviewed their plans, Elena arrived at the apartment, her face etched with concern. "Jakub, what's happening? I've heard rumors, and I'm worried about you." Jakub took her hands, his expression serious. "Elena, there's something you need to know. I've uncovered a cover-up about a railway accident, and I'm working to expose the truth. It's dangerous, but it's necessary." Elena's eyes widened, but she nodded. "I trust you, Jakub. Just promise me you'll be careful." "I promise," Jakub said, pulling her into an embrace. "With your support, I know I can do this." The next morning, the headline of the local newspaper blared the news. "Railway scandal exposed. Decades-old cover-up unveiled." The story detailed the negligence, the cover-up, and the lives lost, using Pavel's journal as the primary source. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Public outcry forced the authorities to launch an investigation into the railway company. As the investigation progressed, more evidence of corruption and negligence surfaced, vindicating Jakub's efforts. However, the struggle was far from over. Jakub knew that revealing the truth was only the beginning. He still had to contend with the restless spirits and the lingering dangers at the construction site. With the truth about the railway accident exposed and the public outcry forcing an investigation, Jakub felt a sense of accomplishment. However, the Spectre's warnings and the mysterious accidents continued to haunt the construction site. Determined to protect his team and finish the project safely, Jakub knew he had to confront the saboteur who was still at large. Jakub spent several sleepless nights piecing together the clues, using both Pavel's journal and his own observations. It became clear that the saboteur was someone with intimate knowledge of the railway and a personal stake in keeping the past buried. His suspicion fell on Victor, a senior engineer who had always seemed too eager to dismiss concerns and push the project forward at any cost. To confirm his suspicions, Jakub devised a plan to catch Victor in the act. He enlisted Marek's help, knowing that he could trust him despite the earlier betrayal. Together, they set up a series of traps and surveillance points around the construction site. One night, as the moon cast an eerie glow over the tracks, Jakub and Marek lay in wait. The air was thick with tension, every creak and rustle heightening their senses. Hours passed, and just as Jakub began to doubt his plan, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. It was Victor. He moved stealthily, tampering with the machinery and setting up what looked like a deliberate malfunction. Jakub's heart pounded as he watched Victor's every move, confirming his worst fears. With a signal to Marek, they sprung their trap. "Victor, stop right there," Jakub shouted, stepping out of his hiding place with Marek right behind him. Victor froze, his eyes wide with shock and anger. "What are you doing here, Jakub? You have no idea what you're getting into." "Oh, I think I do," Jakub replied, stepping closer. "You've been sabotaging this project, putting lives at risk to protect your secrets. It ends tonight." Victor's face twisted with rage. "You fool. Do you think exposing the truth will change anything? The company will bury this just like they did before. You're only endangering yourself and your loved ones." Jakub stood his ground, his resolve unshaken. "Maybe, but I'd rather fight for the truth than live a lie. And I'm not alone." At that moment, several workers, who had been secretly watching the confrontation, stepped forward. Their presence was a silent testament to the support Jakub had garnered through his dedication and honesty. Victor realized he was outnumbered and cornered. He lunged at Jakub, but Marek and the workers quickly restrained him. "You'll pay for this," Victor spat, struggling against their grip. "No, Victor," Jakub said calmly. "You will." The police arrived shortly after, having been alerted by Marek before the confrontation. Victor was taken into custody, and the evidence of his sabotage was documented. The investigation into the railway company intensified, leading to further arrests and resignations among the higher-ups. Despite Victor's capture, the atmosphere at the construction site remained tense. The workers were on edge, and the specter's warnings persisted. Jakub knew that simply removing the human threat was not enough. He had to address the spiritual unrest that haunted the tracks. With the immediate danger neutralized, Jakub turned his attention to finding a way to appease the spirits and bring peace to the site. He consulted with Elena, who had a deep knowledge of local folklore and spiritual practices, hoping to find a solution. "Elena, there must be something we can do to lay the spirits to rest," Jakub said, his frustration evident. Elena thought for a moment before replying. "There is an old ritual, a way to honor the spirits and acknowledge their suffering. It involves a ceremony at the site of the tragedy, offering respect and seeking forgiveness." Jakub nodded, his determination renewed. "Then that's what we'll do. We owe it to the spirits and to ourselves to make things right." With Victor in custody and the investigation into the railway company gaining momentum, Jakub felt a cautious optimism. However, the specter's warnings and the eerie accidents had not ceased, indicating that their work was far from over. Determined to bring peace to the restless spirits, Jakub and Elena prepared for the ritual. Elena gathered the necessary items for the ceremony: candles, flowers, and offerings of food and drink. She explained the ritual to Jakub, emphasizing the importance of showing respect and acknowledging the spirit's suffering. The workers, many of whom had experienced the strange occurrences firsthand, agreed to participate, hoping to finally put an end to the haunting. As night fell, they gathered at the site of the old railway line. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation and a hint of fear. The moon cast a silvery light over the tracks, and the flickering candles added an ethereal glow. Jakub stood at the center of the gathering, holding a lit candle, with Elena by his side. Elena began the ceremony, her voice steady and clear. "We are here to honor those who lost their lives in the tragic accident many years ago. We acknowledge their pain and suffering, and we seek to make amends for the wrongs that were done." Jakub stepped forward, holding Pavel's journal. "This journal contains the truth about what happened. We expose it not only to bring justice, but to offer peace to those who were wronged. We vow to remember and honor their memory." As the workers placed their offerings on the tracks, a cold breeze swept through the area. The candles flickered, and the air grew heavy. Suddenly, the specter of Anna appeared, her form more defined and radiant than before. Her expression was no longer one of sorrow, but of gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice carrying on the wind. "You have given us what we needed, acknowledgement and justice. We can now find peace." As Anna's words faded, a series of spectral figures emerged from the shadows, the spirits of those who had perished in the accident. They stood in silent vigil, their presence both solemn and serene. Jakub felt a profound sense of connection and responsibility, knowing that they had done what was necessary to bring closure. But the moment of peace was abruptly shattered. A loud, mechanical noise echoed from the far end of the tracks, followed by the rumble of an approaching train. Jakub's heart sank as he realized the danger that was still present. The train, an old model that should have been decommissioned, hurtled toward them, driven by an unseen force. "Everyone, get back!" Jakub shouted, his voice cutting through the night. The workers scrambled to safety, but Jakub knew he had to act quickly to stop the train before it reached the ceremony site. He ran towards the train, determination fueling his every step. He climbed onto the engine, desperately searching for a way to stop it. As he fought with the controls, the specter of Anna appeared beside him. "Jakub, you must disconnect the engine from the rest of the train," she urged. "It's the only way to stop it." With Anna's guidance, Jakub located the mechanism to disconnect the engine. He pulled with all his strength, feeling the resistance give way as the engine began to slow. The train's momentum carried it a few yards further before it came to a grinding halt, mere feet from where the ceremony had taken place. Breathing heavily, Jakub climbed down from the engine, his hands trembling from the adrenaline. The spirits, including Anna, gathered around him, their expressions filled with relief and gratitude. "You have saved us," Anna said, her form beginning to fade. "We can now move on, thanks to your bravery and determination." As the spirits vanished into the night, a profound silence settled over the railway. The haunting presence that had plagued the site was gone, leaving behind a sense of peace and resolution. Jakub returned to the group, his face etched with exhaustion and relief. Elena embraced him, her eyes filled with pride. "You did it, Jakub. You brought them peace." With the immediate danger averted and the spirits laid to rest, Jakub knew that their journey was not entirely over. The railway investigation would continue, and there would be more challenges ahead. But for now, they had achieved something truly remarkable. They had honored the past and ensured a safer future. As the group disbanded, Jakub and Elena walked back to the city, hand in hand. The night sky was clear, and the stars shone brightly above them. The road ahead was uncertain, but they faced it with a newfound strength and unity. The aftermath of the final confrontation left the construction site in a state of calm that had been absent for so long. The sense of unease that had plagued the workers dissipated, replaced by a collective feeling of relief and closure. Jakub and Elena, along with the rest of the team, knew that their efforts had finally laid the spirits to rest. The following morning, Jakub stood at the site, surveying the now peaceful tracks. The investigation into the railway company continued to gain momentum, spurred by the public outcry following the newspaper article. Arrests were made, and the higher-ups who had orchestrated the cover-up faced justice. Jakub met with Mr. Novak, the editor, who congratulated him on his bravery and determination. "You've done a great service to this city, Jakub," Mr. Novak said. "Thanks to you, we've uncovered a truth that many wanted to keep buried." "Thank you, Mr. Novak," Jakub replied. "But this wouldn't have been possible without the help of everyone involved. We've all played a part in bringing justice to those who were wronged." Elena joined Jakub, and together they visited Pavel to inform him of the progress. The old engineer was visibly moved, his eyes misting with tears. "You've done more than I ever could," Pavel said, his voice trembling. "You've given those souls the peace they deserved, and you've brought justice to those responsible." Jakub and Elena embraced Pavel, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. They knew that their journey had made a significant impact, not only for the spirits, but for the living as well. The railway company's practices would change, ensuring greater safety and accountability in the future. Back at the construction site, work resumed with a renewed sense of purpose. The workers, inspired by Jakub's leadership and the resolution of the haunting, approached their tasks with newfound enthusiasm. The specter's warnings were no longer a source of fear, but a reminder of the importance of vigilance and respect for the past. Jakub and Elena took a moment to reflect on all they had been through. The challenges they faced had strengthened their bond and deepened their understanding of one another. They knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. As the sun set over Prague, casting a golden glow over the city, Jakub and Elena stood side by side, looking out over the tracks that had brought them together. The past had been honored, the spirits laid to rest, and a safer future was within reach. With the specters finally at peace and the railway scandal fully exposed, Jakub and Elena looked towards the future with hope and determination. Their journey had been fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it had also forged unbreakable bonds and a sense of purpose. As the weeks passed, the investigation into the railway company led to significant changes. New safety regulations were implemented, and those responsible for the negligence and cover-up were held accountable. The city of Prague began to heal from the wounds of the past, and the railway project resumed under stricter oversight. Jakub and Elena found themselves at the center of these changes. Their bravery and perseverance had inspired others, and they were approached with new opportunities to continue their work in ensuring the safety and integrity of the railway system. Jakub was offered a prominent position within the railway administration, tasked with overseeing safety protocols and preventing future tragedies. Elena, whose support and knowledge of local folklore had been instrumental in their journey, decided to use her skills to help preserve and honor the city's history. She began working with a local historical society, documenting the stories and traditions of Prague to ensure that the past would never be forgotten. One evening, as they walked along the now tranquil railway tracks, Jakub and Elena reflected on their journey. The city was alive with the sounds of progress and renewal, a testament to their hard work and dedication. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if we hadn't uncovered the truth?" Elena asked, her voice thoughtful. Jakub nodded, his expression serious. I do, but I also think about how far we've come and the difference we've made. The spirits can rest now, and the future is safer because of it. Elena smiled, squeezing Jakub's hand. And we've proven that the past, no matter how dark, can be brought to light and learned from. As they continued their walk, the stars began to twinkle above them, a reminder of the countless lives they had touched through their actions. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had also been deeply rewarding. With a final glance at the tracks that had brought them together, Jakub and Elena knew that their work was far from over. There were still stories to uncover, truths to reveal, and lives to protect. But they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their mission and their love. As they walked hand in hand into the future, they carried with them the lessons of the past and the promise of a brighter, safer tomorrow. If you enjoyed unraveling this, you're in for another spine-tingling tale. Click the video on your screen to discover more eerie stories from the Phantom Story Society, where history's darkest secrets come to life. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Until next time, stay curious and beware of the shadows.